Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome back to the show. We're really excited today. We have Lisa Ryan with us, and she is a keynote speaker and author, and she's a nationally recognized gratitude expert and founder of Grategy. And she's a dynamic presenter who teaches corporations, associations, and nonprofits and helps them immerse in the power of gratitude in the workplace. And she's also been featured in two major films, The Keeper of the Keys with Jack Canfield of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and The Gratitude Experiment with several experts from the smash hit book and movie, The Secret. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Let's just get right into it. Tell our audience exactly who you help and who are your ideal clients.
Organizations hire me to work with them to keep their top talent and their best clients from becoming someone else's. Employee engagement is such a huge buzzword these days, but when you can get to the heart of what that means, what is that emotional connection that we can strive for that make our employees want to keep working with us, that make our top customers want to keep giving business to us. And we can do that with some simple gratitude strategies, also known as Grategies.
Awesome. So these companies or corporations, are they like Inc. 500? Are they startups? Or could you go a little bit deeper on that?
You know what? I've worked with a variety of organizations, everyone from a mom and pop shop. One of my clients is a payroll processor, a local company with fewer than 100 employees. And I've also worked with Fortune 100 companies at different manufacturing facilities. So really, my ideal clients are the companies that are already doing a lot of things well and want to get even better. I know with some of my association programs, when people come up to me and they say, "Oh, my company really needs you," I really feel that that's probably not the best prospect for me, because the companies that need it the most are actually the least likely to make that investment to turn their corporate culture into one that people want to stay with. You know, that attitude is what's kind of gotten them in trouble to begin with.
Right. That's a great point. What led you to this field, and how did you get started doing this?
I have always wanted to be a speaker. From my very first Dale Carnegie class that I took in the late 80s, I fell in love with, watching the great people, watching the Tony Robbins and they had Zig Ziglars and all the people from, of course, the Get Motivated tours and stuff. And I was looking for a message that would outlive me. Napoleon Hill's work, Think and Grow Rich, is still as relevant today as it was in 1937 when he published it. And I said, what can I do? What kind of message can I bring to the world that matters and that will outlive me? And I really, for years, wasn't quite sure what that was. I was in sales. I had a marketing background, but that's not what resonated with me. I did some network marketing. Again, it didn't touch me to the core, and it wasn't until I started a gratitude practice back in 2009 that really transformed everything, because I started this practice with some friends, and I noticed so many changes in my own personal life. And that's when I started doing the research on gratitude, and really between reading white papers and reports and attending programs and figuring out that gratitude was so much more than just a feel-good emotion that we normally consider it to be. I knew that this was the message that corporate America needed to hear, because it's simple, it's basic, it touches our hearts, it works, and basically from that time on forward, I knew down to the core of my being that this was the message that I was supposed to bring. So I took it from gratitude to putting it into more quote-unquote corporate speak, where it became employee engagement, retention, recognition by really looking at that culture and creating a culture of appreciation in the workplace.
That's awesome. That's a great point. And so you came out of corporate America and started your own business, correct?
Correct.
Some of the listeners are probably at that transition point of, man, should I, I'm trying to find my message, or I really want to do something besides being in a cubicle for the rest of my life. What kind of advice would you give those folks that are trying to transition? I mean, what's the scary part, or how can you give them a message of, take that step?
Well, the first one I would say is don't quit your day job until you are ready. With me, it was a blessing and a curse. In 2010, I was in medical sales. I had a very lucrative position. I was number 5 in the company, having my best year ever, well on the way to winning the sales trip. And I was invited to an organizational announcement where in the morning I had a job, and after that call, me and 12 other people no longer had a job. And and I had never gone through that experience before. I mean, it was absolutely devastating because it came out of nowhere. They did some restructuring, and I found myself on the wrong end of that downsizing. But as I'm sitting in my office and, shaking and crying and scared, I knew from this gratitude practice that I'd been working on for almost exactly a year that I needed to get to gratitude. So I sat down, I did a little meditation, I asked myself, what can I find to be grateful for in this situation? And I knew that this was not a curse, this was a blessing, because these goals that had been on my list for more than 20 years could now come to fruition. So thankfully, I did have a nice package that got me started for the first couple months that I had started my business. But I will tell you, with any entrepreneurial adventure, it is the toughest thing to do from a financial standpoint. I thank goodness every day for my sales and marketing career, because I know that just having a good speech isn't what makes it happen. It's figuring out, how do I get my message out? How do I connect with people? How do I build my list? I've hired coaches to help me to get better. I spoke anywhere at any time for any reason at any audience for little or no money, just to see what connected with the audience, what works with the audience, and really honing your craft. So from a standpoint of getting started, it's really having that financial backing to give you the opportunity to do what you love, because the money does not come in nearly as quickly as you think it's going to. When it does come, now I'm on a really nice upward spiral. The business is growing, it's expanding. It's, I'm doing what I love. I'm traveling the whole country. In the last couple of weeks, I've been from Anchorage to Maine, and everywhere in between. I love the travel. I actually got to go dog sledding in Anchorage, which was really cool.
Wow.
So I guess when it comes down to it is being patient with yourself. You do the work every day, and the number one thing is you do what you absolutely love to do and something that people will pay you to do. Gratitude wasn't enough when it came to building a business. In order for it to make sense for corporate America, it needed to be modified into a language of, how does this work with engaging employees? How does this work with creating a loyal customer base? But the thing is, I didn't choose employee engagement because I heard that it was a hot topic, and that's where I was going to make all the cash. When people ask me, well, Lisa, what's the hot topic right now? What should I build a speech around? That doesn't work unless you know to the core of your being that this is the message you're supposed to share with people, that this is what you were born to do, then it's not going to work for you.
Interesting perspective. So you've got information not only for from a gratitude standpoint, but from a speaker standpoint as well, helping people that want to get their message out and deliver that message. So you've got a couple things there to help people. And you've mentioned this before or earlier about Dale Carnegie, and I think he's responsible for a lot of folks getting started. But I love asking this question to entrepreneurs that I interview was there a book or a movie that stood out along the way that really inspired you, what you're doing today?
I know that from a business classic book standpoint, Think and Grow Rich tends to be the one that everybody leans to, but I literally have 7 different versions of that book, and constantly, I got the first version, the 1979 version, and I have a whole collection because I want to read Napoleon Hill's books at least once a year to just remind myself of the principles. And when I'm doing my programs, when I'm doing my seminars, and I talk about Napoleon Hill, and I ask who has read or is familiar with Napoleon Hill or is familiar with Think and Grow Rich, I'm shocked by how few hands go up. So that, to me, is always their first homework assignment. Go on Amazon, it's 99 cents, or it's free at the library, because that's a book that makes a difference. The other books in my top 5, Think and Grow Rich is number 1, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, number 2, The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz is number 3. There's a book called Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting by Lynn Grabhorn, which is one of my favorites. And also there is the Napoleon Hill's newest book that just came out. It was actually so powerful. He wrote it in 1939, but his wife refused to let it be published because he was going so far ahead of his time. It was just concepts that she thought that people would just shun him if it was actually Outwitting the Devil.
Yes, Outwitting the Devil.
Outwitting the Devil, The Secret to Freedom and Success. Thank goodness for Google.
Yeah. You beat me to it. I was Googling it at the same time.
But in Outwitting the Devil, his wife basically would not allow it to be published during Napoleon's lifetime, and she actually stipulated that it would not be published in her lifetime either. So it wasn't until 2011 that this book came out, 2011, 2013, in the last couple of years. But it's a remarkable book. And, it's right up there just as far as the thought process and how Napoleon thought that, again, the concepts that he talks about in that book are just as relevant today as they would have been had they been allowed to come out to the public in the late 1930s. However, I think that his wife was right. It probably would have blown their minds back in those days.
Absolutely.
But we need it today.
It'll blow your mind today. I mean, it's like, she's like, she made the right decision about we're not releasing this till way after our deaths. But it's crazy impactful. So there's that seems to be the top book. There's 3 or 4 of them there that I hadn't heard of. So that's good stuff. What Lisa? What really gives you the passion to get up in the morning and do what you do?
Besides the fact that I love speaking and connecting with my audiences and seeing. Because the thing with my programs is that it's not just going to make the company more productive, the company more profitable, the business more successful. It touches the employees. It touches the management team in their personal lives as well. These concepts, help them in their relationship with their spouse and having better relationships with their kids and with their friends and with everybody else. It starts with, getting back to what matters to us, which in life is love and gratitude. Dr. John DeMartini talks about the fact that, if we had 24 hours left to live, then the two things that we would focus on telling people is I love you and thank you. And so I feel that in my message. I also have a gratitude thought of the week that I've been doing since 2011, and I get the privilege of hearing my subscribers or of hearing from my subscribers every week telling me the differences that these little vignettes have made in their life. And they also share with me their stories and allow me to share their stories again with my readers. So it's such an honor to hear from people and to see the difference that just these short stories can make when people can get back to finding the good. When they're so focused on, their life is kind of in the toilet, nothing's going good for them, and because of something they heard from me, they decide to take my 30-day gratitude challenge, and they focus on finding the good for 30 days. Now, my evil plan, of course, is that they continue after the 30 days with their gratitude practice, but just the beautiful, beautiful notes that I get, that really, that makes it all worthwhile.
That's, gratitude of all the things, business or life, I think is the key to it. And the people that don't grasp it, definitely have some challenges. So you're on an awesome mission. I'm a product of daily gratitude, and I can't tell you how much it's changed my life. And that's awesome that you're being able to help people in corporate America. I want to back up a little bit. When you asked the audience about Think and Grow Rich, and nobody responded, why is it that, there's a separation between the corporate mentality and an entrepreneur mentality. And I mentioned that every entrepreneur I speak to knows about Think and Grow Rich. But people in corporate America don't have any idea about that. And do you see the disconnect there? Obviously you're bringing it to them and to experience it, but I just find it why there's such a big division of that, and they're not educating themselves that way or self-educating themselves. Comment on that a little bit? Or?
Sure. I've been working with one of my clients, and I've spoken at a couple of their manufacturing facilities. They've actually had me come in to do 5 75-minute programs in one day, starting at 5:30 in the morning with third shift. But basically, I have 4 programs with the hourly employees and 1 program with the management team. And the management team, 40% of the hands in the room go up when I talk about Think and Grow Rich. With the hourly employees, 0, maybe 1. And I look at it as a privilege to give them access to share information with them that they had never been exposed to. When I look at the people like in this plant, I'm probably the first quote-unquote motivational speaker that most of them have ever been exposed to. And I think because of the way that people are raised, when you kind of get into that mindset of I'm going to, from high school, I'm never going to open a book again, I'm going to work so that I can live and support my family, that we don't really know the power of our subconscious mind because, our parents and our parents before them have been kind of just in this, you go to school, you get a job, you work, and that's it. And they don't, and when you associate with people that, aren't on that mind path, don't really think outside of themselves and really connect with the inner power that they have through affirmation, through written goals, through having a mastermind group, through being decisive. All the things that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich is just brand new grounds to them because they've never been exposed to it. I was very blessed to the fact that I was exposed to self-development in my early 20s. And it's always pleasing to me when I can catch people when they're young, but I'll tell you, it doesn't matter. I've connected with audience members in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s and their 60s and can open their eyes. And, because of the way that I tell the Napoleon Hill story and go with some of the concepts, when I ask people at the end of my programs, what are you going to do as a result of this program, besides keeping, them saying they're going to start keeping a gratitude journal, the other thing is they will say, I'm going to invest in some of the books that you've talked about. So Think and Grow Rich is always in there. I've also been talking a lot to them about the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, because that's a concept that a lot of them can immediately relate to because they want to have a better relationship with their spouse of 20 or 30 years. They've just kind of, gotten into bad habits and forgot how to fill the love tank of that person. So I try to connect with people on a personal level and let them know how this is not only going to make the company more profitable, more productive, more productive, but it's going to help them. Now, the thing is that as the employees have less stress, as they have better relationships at home, as they're able to look for the good, employee by employee, it changes the culture, and over the long term, yes, that company is going to see significant changes that are going to improve the productivity, improve the profitability, and just make it a much better place to work where people want to stay.
It's a beautiful thing. Thanks for clarifying that. And moving forward, what kind of problems are you seeing once you get inside these organizations, and what's keeping them from, having a sound environment or culture? What are you finding that you have to fix, or, your recommendations are helping them overcome?
Well, I like to start with the management. I like to start with management and leadership teams, kicking off a management retreat or something, because when it starts with the leadership, and I can show them ways that they can start to change the language within the organization, that they can start looking for the good, and catching people doing things right, teaching them about the 5-to-1 positivity ratio that basically says on a high-performing team, for every one negative thing, they hear at least 5 positives. On an average performing team, for every one negative thing, they only hear 2 positives. And a low performing team, it's 0.3 to 1. They're basically hearing 3 times more negative than positive. So when I can encourage these managers, these supervisors, these corporate leaders to really focus on finding what their employees are doing well, how can they get, how can they help them, being proactive, helping them with their career? It really starts it starts there. There's too many managers that always want to focus on, let's fix what's broken. And unfortunately, what gets recognized gets repeated. So if you're only recognizing bad behavior will continue to be repeated. If instead you start focusing on that good behavior, because we're more starved for appreciation than we are for bread, as Mother Teresa once said, you start to see that behavior will get repeated. So I like to start with management because that's part of the language. Sometimes when companies bring me in and it's strictly for the employees will come in with the attitude of, oh, great, one more thing management wants us to do to make them more money,
Right.
And
right.
I like to do, like I said, with these last couple clients where I've had them where they have had me come in and talk to the entire plant. That way, everybody's speaking the same language, and they understand that changes are starting. They also understand that their corporate culture took a long time to get to where it's at, and it's not going to change overnight, but that shouldn't deter them from keep doing these little things that basically cost little to no money.
That's a good thing. So you're not a proponent of punishing your way to success.
No, absolutely not. People fare much better, and the numbers prove it. When, and the thing that's been nice in the last 10 years is that you have had books coming out like Strengths Finders that is teaching the value of looking for the strengths of people and how do we get them to do more of what they love to do, more of what they're good at. Because in the long run, when we're allowing people to use the skills, the talents, the gifts that they're given, instead of forcing them into a box that they don't like, that they don't enjoy, we're defeating the purpose of creating a culture that attracts people to come and work for us.
That's a great point. Can you describe how you've actually helped someone overcome these challenges, or how you've helped a corporation? You don't have to name the corporation.
Sure.
But just describe how one of your clients, how they've overcome these things.
I worked with one organization that immediately comes to mind, and they were a Department of Utilities. Okay, so primarily male audience, primarily guys that are basically in the field working on sewers and toilets, and had them come in. I did my first half-day workshop, and we did things like starting to change the language. When somebody says thank you, to say you're welcome. Instead of no problem, no worries, it was nothing, just doing my job, all the things that we say instead of you're welcome. Because the thing is, when somebody says thank you, they're giving you a gift. And when you turn around and say it was nothing, you're basically taking that gift and you're throwing it back at them. So we practice that, and we look at how changing the language. We also look at how accepting a sincere compliment. Somebody says, hey, that's a beautiful tie you're wearing. Hey, I really like your shoes, whatever. The proper response, of course, is thank you. But what we often hear is, this old saying, are you kidding me? No, I've got on sale at, Marshall's, whatever. So we don't accept those compliments. So even little things like changing the language. So with this particular organization, they had me come in. I did my half-day workshop for them. We talked about changing the language. Most of them then signed up for my gratitude thought of the week, so they got those weekly reminders. And then when the organization brought me back in for a follow-up program 6 months later, the manager told me that he was still noticing that these guys were more polite to each other because they got it. They were aware of it. And because they were all in the room with me, they all, they were all speaking the same language. And they were all getting that gratitude thought of the week. Because unfortunately, too many organizations where, they bring in a speaker, they bring in a person one time, and they think that, you're going to hit the easy button and that everything's going to change overnight. But unless there's some way with, follow-up teleseminars or follow-up phone calls or going back in for another program, for having those little weekly reminders that you're staying in touch with people and reminding them, unfortunately, life happens. So it's building that continuing relationship with my clients that I absolutely love. I mean, that's one of many of my clients that has had me come back on a number of occasions because they see the change. And it starts with the first time that we're together, but it continues as they're getting those reminders.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that with us. That was a great example. What would be your best piece of advice if one of the listeners is looking to or considering making a change through gratitude? What would be your best piece of advice?
The number one piece of advice is to start today with a gratitude journal. And a gratitude journal, I remember I was in one of my programs and I was talking about the gratitude journal, and this woman she was so defensive. She started yelling at me. She's like, and what do I have to give up in order to do that? Add one more thing to my plate. Obviously, little stressed, little hostile. But I said, hello, 2 minutes of sleep. I'm not asking you to journal for hours and hours, to have that gratitude journal on your nightstand before your feet hit the ground in the morning, to reach over and to write down 5 statements I'm grateful for, starting with that, and adding some detail. If every day I wrote down I'm grateful for my husband, I'm grateful for my cats, I'm grateful for my house, it'd get really boring. But if instead I can add some detail, I'm so grateful that Scott cooked a really great dinner for me last night. I'm so grateful for watching Big Bang Theory with 3 kitties sitting on my lap. We can get into the feeling of it. The nice thing about the morning journal is that you can also be grateful in advance. You have an important meeting come up that day. I'm so grateful that my meeting with Mr. Smith went well today. So we set that positive expectation. And I will tell you, I started my gratitude practice with a couple friends. I never expected anything from it. And it has completely changed my life. You start focusing on the good. And so that's the challenge, is do it for 30 days. See the changes. If you don't necessarily feel the changes yourself, what will happen is other people will start to notice them within you. Wow, what's going on? I had one of my clients told me, yeah, my wife told me that I don't complain as much as I used to. So that probably, and the other thing I have to tell you, which is kind of funny, I have 2 of my friends that, the gratitude journal was always my thing, so they really didn't participate. They would hear me speaking like, yeah, that's Lisa's thing. And in 1 week, both of those friends called me, and basically the conversation went like this. Lisa, been going through this tough time right now, and, I know you've been yakking about this darn gratitude journal for as long as I've known you. And I said, oh, what the heck, I'll try this thing. And they're like, and you're not going to believe what's happening. Oh, my goodness. I'm like, well, that's why I suggested the use of the gratitude journal. So even when people don't necessarily believe that it works, if you just make that commitment and give yourself the gift of 2 minutes a day, if you're looking to branch out on your own, you're starting a new business. I'm grateful for my passion in this area. I'm grateful that people are starting to come to me as a recognized expert in my area of, that I love to talk about. Again, setting those positive expectations, but looking for the good, constantly focusing on that. And like I said, there is not a person that I've talked to that has done this practice and has not experienced some kind of incredible result from it. It's a powerful, powerful practice. And from a corporate standpoint, I've had a couple of my clients that have a log, have a notebook, like one of them who owns a golf course has a notebook by their time clock. So the employees punch in and then they write down something that they're grateful for the day. So we can actually take the same program into corporate America. We start our meetings, instead of diving into it, we start our meetings asking people for 30 seconds of good news, of what good is going on right now. And we start to get that into the culture where we're constantly looking for the good. When you can do that, well, that's when you start to see the changes.
You made an important statement about you weren't expecting anything. You got involved and you weren't expecting anything. And I know what I've learned as far as releasing it and not, just detach yourself from it has been a key for me, is you state it and release it and not expect anything, and things start to happen. Have you seen that as well?
Yes, and a little bit of an expansion on it. It's in Mike Dooley from the tut.com, which is one of my favorite emails, talks about the cursed hows, HOW''S. And basically that is, sometimes we go in with this expectation of how things are going to happen. Well, I want this, and this is how I believe that it should happen. And that's where the releasing comes in. It's not the positive expectation of starting with the end in mind, like Stephen Covey says in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but what it is seeing the end, seeing what you want to accomplish, but allowing the process to happen on its own, because so many things have happened in my life that are so much grander than I could have possibly planned for. So you're right. We go with it. We know what we want. We have that positive expectation that good is going to come out of it, but we don't try to manipulate the process. It has to come out this way. No, it doesn't. When you release that, magic happens.
How far do you go into explaining, conscious decisions and subconscious decisions, or what's going on in the subconscious to make all these things happen? Do you go into that at all, or is that too deep for them?
Yeah. I do, and depending on the audiences that I'm with, one of the things, because I speak so much, I'm really good at reading an audience and being able to give them what they need at the time. If I were to go to that group of hourly employees and dive into the power of the subconscious mind, I would lose them because they have no exposure to it. So one of my favorite examples to use when I'm talking about the fact that, this is not really easy to do because we're wired for negativity. This goes back to caveman days. If you were nice to that saber-toothed tiger, it was going to eat you. Now, we have come far, far away from caveman days and saber-toothed tigers, but we're still wired for negativity, and I can prove it to you. You go on Amazon, you find the perfect thing that you're going to buy. There are 100 reviews. 98 of them are positive, and 2 are negative. Which ones do you read first?
Yeah.
And, of course, they all laugh and admit the fact that they look for the 2 negatives, and then they get it. Because I've shared with them something that they understand, and then with the books, with the concepts of being able to tell them, you don't necessarily need to believe that this works. Just give yourself the gift of those 2 minutes of looking for the good and starting where you are. Because a lot of times we think with gratitude we have to write down the things of, I won the lottery, I met the love of my life, I just got a rockin' promotion. When things are going wrong in our life, when we're going through a hard time, sometimes it's in the fact that, I'm grateful I have running water and flushing toilets and 2 legs that I can walk down the stairs on. We start where we're at, and when I can, help these people by starting there. I had several people at that plant come up to me at the end with tears in their eyes and say that it's exactly what they needed. They never thought about it that way. They never knew the power that they have. But you have to introduce some of these powerful concepts at a level that people understand, because otherwise they won't take action on them.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Plus, there's no help from the media. I mean, if they're watching the news, they're being programmed of negativity, right off the bat. So that's not helping either.
Well, yeah, if it bleeds, it leads. Actually, it was funny. A couple weeks ago, I saw a story on the news, and it was a woman who had basically run out of money. She couldn't feed her family that night, and so she went out by a stop sign and was panhandling. And a policeman came and he picked her up, and then he ended up taking her to a grocery store and buying her groceries and then, giving her the help that she needed. And the newscasters were actually sad. See, you guys think that all we do is we focus on negative news, but there's a happy story for you. It shouldn't be that big of a deal when we share happy news. It was 3 minutes of happiness out in 57 minutes of not happy news. Because, again, we're wired for it. You know, we've heard the saying, misery loves company. If I am too happy all the time, people are going to tell me I'm a Pollyanna. They're going to tell me that I'm not being realistic. I don't know how you can be that happy all the time. And they avoid you because they want to connect with other people that are wired similarly, and that's not helpful. So I also share with people, you know, to really look at the top 5 people that they're hanging out with, you know, because we have those people in our lives that are the positive influencers. They love us, they encourage us, they support us, you know, no matter who we are, no matter what we do, they're there for us. And then we also have those people in our lives that discourage us. They try to hold us back. They want us to do well, just not better than them, you know. And we have those people in our lives. So if you were looking at those top 5 people that you hang out with, would you have more positive influencers or would you have more negative influencers? You know, and I make a joke of it. I said, you might be saying, you know, hey, at least I got a lot of negative people, but they're my relatives. The thing is that there are some people in our lives that we can't not be around. But every single one of us, no matter where we are on the social scale, on the financial scale, we are all given the exact same gift of 24 hours in a day. And to be able to make the choice to spend more time with those people that are uplifting us, that are seeing us for the very best selves that we can be and the very best that we already are, that's where we want to spend our time. Not with those negative people that bring us down. And those newscasts, unfortunately, you know, really, you know, not only are they sharing negative news, but they're sharing it at the worst possible time, right before you go to bed, right before your subconscious mind is going to be harping on all of that negativity for the 6 or 8 or, you know, however many hours that you're sleeping. You're putting that poison into your mind versus going to bed on a good note, you know, versus stopping at the end of the day and writing down 5 positives that happened during the day, you know, which is my second form of gratitude journal. A little bit more difficult to do than the morning journal because when you're at night and you've had a particularly horrific day, you know, it's hard to find 5 good things, but the cool thing is that, number one, you can always find them when you look, and number 2, it puts you going to sleep in a much more positive frame of mind. There's research by Dr. Robert Emmons from the University of California at Berkeley that has found that people that have a regular practice of gratitude are awake less time before they fall asleep, they sleep more soundly, and they awaken more refreshed. So the more positive that we can put into our subconscious mind, particularly before we go to bed, that will start to change our lives.
Powerful stuff. Well, I realize you've got some great news. You've recently been selected as the Connector of the Year for 2015, so congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I am the president of the Ohio chapter of the National Speakers Association. The corporate event Speaker of the Year was from the Connector's Choice magazine. This is a magazine that every year they look at there's 28 different categories, and I have been nominated for the last 3 years. I was a finalist 2 years ago, and finally this year I was able to bring the award home. It was a fantastic year. I celebrated my 5-year anniversary in business, and it was a true honor because it's an organization, CBC Magazine and Contempo Communications, which puts this out every year. They're one of my favorite, periodicals that I get every month in the mail. And, just the connections that I've made through this and being able to say, that this is something that I've aspired to do, that I've worked towards for the last 3 years. I actually had it on my vision board of me holding my Friends Award,
Nice.
2012. So it's been on there for a while. Sometimes the vision boards take a little while to work, but they always work.
Right. That's right. Well, that's an awesome accomplishment. So congratulations on that. So if the listener's ready to get started with you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to do that is they can go to my website, which is Grategy, GRATEGY.com. On that, they can sign up for Gratitude Thought of the Week, which is, again, a short inspirational message that seems to show up exactly when you need it. The nice thing about Gratitude Thought of the Week also is that I am a reply away. My email address is Lisa, Lisa, at Grategy.com. So, if you want to reach out via email, you can contact me. There's a contact form on my website as far as looking at any of my programs, which basically range from the 45-minute to 90-minute keynote up through a half-day or full-day program, as well as that continuing relationship, so that we're really working on building that culture. But Grategy is always a great place to start. And if anybody's wondering, well, Grategy, what is that? That is Gratitude Strategies. So it's my word. I own the word, which is really cool. And it's a message that I feel is important. How do we bring gratitude strategies into our personal lives and into our businesses?
Perfect. Well, I knew this conversation would be lengthy, and I appreciate all the good nuggets that you provided. And it's been an honor to interview you, so thank you very much.
You are very welcome.
Well, there you have it for this version of the show. We'll see you the next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.